In this video, I'll be discussing some of the defining features of humans and also how humans fit in with the other animals. So first of all, as I mentioned before, the species name for humans is Homo sapiens. Homo is the genus name and the species name is sapiens. So together, this is referred to as a binomial nomenclature in which you have two names, the genus and species together, and that together helps define the species. So Homo sapiens is humans. Homo sapiens belong to the kingdom Animalia, or the animals. The phylum Chordata. The phylum Chordata has a number of defining features, one of which is something called a notochord, which is a sort of dorsal stiffened rod, which actually disappears in humans early in embryonic development and turns into the vertebral column. We're of the class Mammalia, or the mammals. Mammals are distinguished by a number of different features, such as having hair. They also have mammary glands, hence the name Mammalia. The mammary glands, are, of course, for making milk for the young. Humans are of the order Primates. Primates include things such as monkeys and apes. And finally, humans belong to the family Hominidae, which is the great apes. The great apes include bonobos, chimpanzees, orangutans, and gorillas. Now, let's talk a little bit more about some of the defining features of humans. Morphologically, in other words, if you look at the structure of the human body, humans are bipedal. Bi means two, and pes or ped means foot. So this means we have 2 feet. So essentially, we walk in an upright posture. So that's a little bit unusual. None of the other primates really do that, of the extant primates. Now, there are some birds that are bipedal, but so it's not something absolutely unique to humans. Let's go on to the next thing, which is a large brain. So humans have a large brain relative to body size, and we don't know exactly how the brain developed over evolutionary time. Some thoughts that people have had is that perhaps the large brain size may be associated with tool use. So we see, if you look at the archaeological record, there's progressively more and more tool use as we developed into humans. And maybe the large brain had something to do with that. Other theories have to do with social interaction. So humans tend to live in groups, and you have to essentially keep track of all these social interactions. That takes quite a bit of brain power. The next thing is actually a reason for why we may have a large brain has to do with language, which is the next topic, which is capacity for complex language. So lots of animals do have vocalizations, and these can be quite complex. They can signify various things. But no animal has, other than humans, has such a complex language. So humans have very complex spoken language. So across the whole globe, every group of humans has spoken language. And many groups of humans have written language, which is a way of passing on cultural information. Let's move on. So another defining feature of humans is the opposable thumb. So if we look back again in evolutionary time, we can see that all primates have opposable thumbs. It's thought that these opposable thumbs were helpful for gripping, for climbing. So primates generally lived, or many of them lived, in an arboreal fashion, meaning they lived in the trees. And this was a good way to get away from predators and also to search for fruit and things like that. But if we look at humans, they have essentially the longest thumb compared to finger length, compared to any other primate. So we have this sort of really large thumb. And what's that used for? Well, we're really good at doing lots of things with a thumb as well as the various fingers. So we can do fine motor movements, again, with the hand. And also you can do fairly strong things like gripping a branch or something like that. Now, if you look at the chimpanzee, which is shown here also side by side with the human hand, you'll see that the thumb is much shorter. So they do have an opposable thumb. It's not quite as good for doing fine detailed work as the human hand. But the thumb is shorter, and it's actually, we'll be curious why it's a bit shorter. It is thought that one reason why the thumb may be shorter, again, has to go back to a lifestyle. So with chimpanzees, they tend to live in the trees, and having a really long thumb might actually be a problem there. It might get in the way. So as the chimps go from branch to branch, they don't really need the thumb that much. They sort of swing by grabbing on. So it looks like their hands are actually very well adapted, but for life in the trees. And this makes sense. The next point I want to bring up is that the ancestors of today's humans and chimps diverged about 4 to 6 million years ago. So this is quite a long time ago. So it means that the ancestor of both the humans and the chimps did have the opposable thumb. It was a primate. But over time, this is quite a bit of time, the humans have essentially developed a much longer thumb that's good for gripping and also for doing fine motor movements, such as writing, things like that. Whereas the chimps have sort of potentially moved in another direction, where their hand is much more well developed just for climbing and swinging from branch to branch in trees. Okay, so that pretty much brings me to the end of this video. Thanks a lot.